Okay, in today's video, I want to share with you how much money you can make from writing a nonfiction book. So this video is for you if you have been meaning to write a nonfiction book, or you have a message, a story, or expertise that you want to share with the world. Over the past 5 years, I've worked on over 20 books. One of them generated $15,000 in the first year. Another one generated consulting clients for the author, as well as a book tour and talks. And two other ones actually, were used in colleges either for teaching or for professional development. Now, let's dive into how do you actually make money from the book, because there are a couple of different ways. So we're going to break this down very simply. First thing, you need to realize that there are 3 ways to monetize the book. The first one is book royalties. The second one is speaking engagement. And the third one is selling related products or services, okay? So let's start with book royalties. So book royalties are essentially the money that you get from selling a copy of your book. So in this, when talking about royalties, there are 2 scenarios. Either you self-publish your book or you work with a traditional publishing house. Now, the difference is that with the traditional publishing house, it's a lot harder to get the book deal, but they will cover all the publishing costs for you. When you self-publish, you have to take care of the publishing costs, but you keep a lot more of the money. Now, let's say you publish through Amazon, which is the option that I suggest the most to clients. You're going to retain about 35 to 70% of the profits from the book. So I'll give you some examples. I have one book on Amazon that I sell for $24.99 US. I get $21.30 in royalty. So that's what I collect. Now, I have another book on Amazon that sells for $6.99 US, and from that book I earn $4.30 in royalties. Now, depending on your book, depending on your market, you may price your book differently. So let's just assume that you're going to earn a $15 royalty from Amazon every time you sell your book. Now, you've self-published, you've marketed the book. What does the math look like? Well, if you sell 100 copies at $15 royalty, that means you make $1,500. If you sell 500 copies, that means $7,500. And if you sell 1,500 copies, then that means $22,500. Now, if you have an audience and that audience is growing, then you can bring in these numbers yearly, if not monthly. So every year, every month, you can make between $1,500 to $22,500. Now, these are a baseline. Some books make a lot more than that, but this is a baseline. And what's really cool about this, about the book royalties, it's that once the book is published and you're marketing it and you have a marketing system, then this income, which can go as high as, there's no limit to how many times you can sell your book. Well, that income is almost completely passive. So the great thing is that that's just one option. When you sell your book through Amazon, you can also develop your own book funnel, meaning you'll have a landing page where you sell your book either digitally or in print, and you take the order from the customer directly. So there's no third party like Amazon. In that case, you can keep a lot more of the profits. And not only that, with this approach, you can actually get email subscribers. If you have a mailing list, you can get potential buyers if you are selling products or services. And you can even upsell these customers that buy your book onto other products or services. So that's a great opportunity to generate additional revenue on top of the book royalty. Now, the other option when it comes to the book royalties is to pursue a traditional book deal. Now, in that scenario, like I mentioned before, you're not going to be covering the publishing costs. The publisher will do that for you. However, you're going to make a lot less in royalties. What does that mean? Well, it means you may make about $1 per copy, but sometimes it's even less than that. Sometimes it can be cents on the copy. It depends on how large your audience, it depends on your notoriety, it depends on the book deal, how much leverage you have in negotiating the book deal with the publisher. Now, imagine you're making $1 per copy. That may sound like not a lot, but if your book sells really well, if you have a large audience, this could be a lot of money. So to give you an example, even though it's not the norm, some best-selling authors making $1 per copy sell 20,000 book copies each week. Now, if you do the math, that's $80,000 a month. And sure, that means they have to do a book tour, they have to do talks, and there are various commitments that surround selling so many copies. But $80,000 is quite a lot of money passively from the book. So that's $960,000 each year. If my math is good. I was an English major, not a math major. Now, that's the book royalties. That's only the beginning. Now, let's talk about the speaking engagements, because yes, once you have a book published, you are able to land speaking engagements. Of course, even before you have a book, you're able to do that. If you have a story, if you have a message that you want to share, you can get booked as a speaker with organizations, with groups, at conferences. But once you have a book under your belt, that's a lot easier. And not only that, you can also command higher fees on your speaking engagements. So there is a study by Founder Magazine that looked at the baseline fees, and what they have found is that, let's say that you've done fewer than 3 talks, you can command about $500 to $2,500 per talk. Now, if you've done 3 to 8 talks, or you are an expert or first-time author, you can command as much as $5,000 to $10,000 per talk. So yes, that means if you have your book, then you can command as much as $10,000 per talk. And then, if you have more talks under your belt, if you're a micro-influencer, if you're an influencer in general, you can command more than that. But this is to say, if you have a book under your belt, you could already be charging as much as $5,000 to $10,000 per talk. So that's a lot of money just to go speak to people for about an hour or so. Now, you may not be necessarily interested in doing public speaking, and that's fine. But what you need to understand, at least from this, is the optionality that comes from having a book under your belt. Because if organizations are willing to pay you $5,000 to $10,000 for a talk, then what else are they willing to pay you for? Whether that's consulting, that's coaching, that's training, that's education. There are a lot of things that you can do to generate additional revenue that comes from having the credibility of having written a book. So that was for the speaking engagements. The third element, the third way to monetize your book, is to sell related products or services. So this is where the real money is. This is where you can have really high margins and you can really get a lot of consistency. So you wrote a book and it has a particular topic. It could be your story. It could be a problem that you're solving. It could be that you're helping the audience achieve a goal. Well, you may already be selling products or services, whether that's a course, whether that's a coaching program, whether that's a consulting offer. If you don't, that's okay. And you can think about potentially doing that. Now, the thing about selling related products or services is that if you're selling for $1,500 or less, and especially if you have quite low margin on the product or service, you may not see a significant increase in revenue, although you will still see an increase in revenue. But once you are charging $2,000 to $3,000 in more for your services, and especially if it's a high leverage, high profit offer, let's say a group coaching program, let's say a consulting offer where you come in and you charge a certain amount per hour, that's when it gets really interesting. So let's say that you sell something for $3,000. Well, you're getting new audience members from your book. You have people reading you, so they start to know you, like you, and trust you because they've read your book. You start gaining more social media followers, and you have people that are actively invested in what you are doing. Well, these people become potential buyers, and with the right strategy, you have access to these people to talk to them, whether that's through your social media, whether that's through your email list or any other community that you built for around your book. Well, now you can sell to these people, and let's say that you sell a consulting offer for $3,000. Well, you sell it to 3 people each month, you're almost making $10,000 per month. And so of course this varies based on the problem that you're solving, what value you're adding to customers, but selling those products and those services, especially if they're high ticket, high margin, and high leverage offers, well, you can easily be making an additional $10,000 per month. So how do you fit all of this together? Well, you have to realize that if you want to make good money from your book, well, of course, there's the royalties, that's the basics, because if you write a book, then you want to sell the book, of course. Then you can consider public speaking as well. You may already have products or services. If you don't, consider that as well. But the ideal when it comes to making money from your nonfiction book is to take all these different revenue streams and putting them together and creating a strategy so that you can add all these revenue streams and make a good amount from all of them. And so even if you're not necessarily making consistent book royalties, then maybe you're doing speaking engagements or you're always selling your products and your services to your audience. So this way you don't have all your eggs in one basket, but rather you can make money from all of these different revenue streams. So you're diversified. Now, you want to think about that, but if you don't have a book yet, well, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself a couple of questions first. So how big is your audience and how can you grow your audience? Because your audience is going to contribute a lot to how many books you can sell. Then you want to ask yourself, what is the story or the message or the expertise that you want to share in that book? How valuable is the problem that you are solving? How much value you can add to your audience? And then which angle has the most promise, the most potential for a bestseller, for selling a lot of copies, for compelling people to your message? It doesn't matter what your topic is, the angle really does the heavy lifting when it comes to selling your books. Now, which channels and platforms can you use to leverage your book? Your social media, your email list, if you already have that. What are the partnerships that you can build with people to sell more of your books? Now, what do you currently sell? Do you have any products? Do you have any services that you can sell on the back of the book that you want to write? This is going to be really helpful in figuring out, well, is it worth it for you to write a book? Is the time investment worth it? Or should you hire a ghostwriter to write your book? Now, based on these questions, based on the answers to these questions, you can figure out your strategy and you can write a dangerously impactful book that brings significant extra revenue in your bank account. Now, of course, the outcomes inevitably vary, but when you are the right author with the right book, with the right publishing path, with the right strategy, and with the right backend, you can make a lot of money from your nonfiction book. So, what I want to offer to you, as you've stayed until the end of this video, is to get on the phone on Zoom with me personally to talk strategy. So I'm offering a free book planning session that you can use to ask me about what you should do, what strategy should you use, what book you should write, what publishing approach should you go for. And so I'm going to be personally diving into your own situation, your own story, your own message, and your own potential to help you see the opportunities you may have missed in the past and show you transparently what can be done. So this call, it's for you if you have been thinking about writing a book. It's for you if you sell high margin products or services, or you're planning to do that at some point. And it's also for you if you have the desire to scale your message or your story or your expertise, bring it in front of more people. So if that sounds like you, you can go ahead and book a free planning sessions. It's free of charge. I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm going to give you my honest opinion about what you should do and tell you about what the next steps, which next steps you should take. So you can find the link down below. You can go ahead and book that free planning session, and I will talk to you then.